Hello one and all, welcome back to ArcheAge Inspiration. My name is Cilantro. Today's rolls are 1, 3, and 10. So let's see what we get here. Looks like that is Occultism, Vitalism, and Battle Rage. Wow, okay. Very similar to yesterday's rolls. Blackguard. Alright, let's see what a Blackguard can do. So here's what I have for the Blackguard. Decided to build this fairly straightforward. More or less what this is a suicide DPS with heals as support, which might seem kind of silly, but the way you should really, I think, approach this build is to sort of stay back and keep people topped off and keep up your urgency, which gives you a reduced cooldown on your occultism abilities, of course, which helps with stillness and one of your point-blank AoE crowd control elements here, Hellspear. And activate your Frenzy. As long as you don't do any damage to any enemies, you can just accrue Frenzy and it won't even, there's no downside to it. Just pops a cooldown. You have a 35-second window in which you take 21% less magic damage, giving you more mitigation, and your melee and magic attack accrue quite highly. So just sit back as much as you can, don't use any attacking abilities at all for a long while, top people off, and as the tide turns, or if you need to let out a burst of damage, that's when you go in. Use Tiger Strike, Hell Spear, Summon Crows, Charge, Triple Slash, Precision Strike as needed, and just wreak as much havoc as you can. And then hopefully make it out of there before you die, because you will definitely take a lot of damage. Of course, even as Frenzy reduces your physical defense by a large amount, I would highly recommend using Bond Breaker, because it will help mitigate the physical damage you'll take for 4 seconds. So after you've unleashed your fury and you're trying to retreat back to your group, Bond Breaker's not a bad idea. For actual pursuit and support, we have Crippling Mire and Mana Stars. Both these abilities are great for slowing people down, and they'll both do a pretty darn decent amount of damage once you've been fully buffed up with Frenzy. I would recommend getting yourself a two-handed weapon for this. You could possibly go for dual wielding if you really wish to for the parry ability, but I think a two-hander will work better. Get a Obsidian Katana, whatever the two-hand version is, and the Obsidian healing weapon. I think there's a two-handed version of that as well once those come out. For now, you could just use a Hassla staff and a Hassla Great Club if you really wish to get as much physical damage as you can in addition to all this. I think this kind of playstyle is kind of neat. You know, it definitely requires some very careful consideration of your options. You know, knowing when to continue tossing your heals and playing that support role using only your crowd control and mana stars and all that, and then when to prop Frenzy, start to build up your stacks, and then go in and just wreck some face. The amount of damage you do when your Frenzy is maxed out is pretty absurd. Just for an example, I don't have the greatest equipment, but my magic and melee attack are both, 300 to 400. Even if they were, 400 to 500, getting an extra 300 total melee and magic attack from Frenzy is quite powerful and will definitely boost your damage output. This build actually gets a lot better when the 55 patch goes out. I would highly recommend working your way through all of Occultism when that happens, possibly going to Death's Beckoning, grabbing some of these critical passives, giving you even faster cooldowns on all of your abilities, and maybe even grabbing the 55 Occultism ability, which is essentially a suicide bomb, dealing a large amount of damage when you die. Probably not a bad idea, considering you're going to have a huge boost to your stuff, and you're likely to die anyway, since you're kind of a suicide build. And likewise, Vitalism gets you an AoE attack speed buff, which is quite nice. And the Battle Rage ability is probably the best. It's a targeted leap, from what I can tell. And when you land, if the target has been snared, which you do have a snare from Vitalism and a snare from Battle Rage with Charge and Mirror Light, then the target becomes shaken. And a target that's become shaken will be stunned, or I guess distressed, I think it uses different names, will be stunned during the duration of channeling Crippling Mire, ensuring that you'll do a large amount of damage to somebody. So this is one of those builds I would love to revisit when we get the extra 5 skill points, because I think it's going to gain a lot. But otherwise, it's pretty neat. I've messed around with the Battle Rage Occultism package before as sort of a suicide DPS, but knowing that Vitalism is there not so much to support you while you're doing damage, but to be there before you start doing your damage, to top people off, and otherwise support your group, kind of changes things. Even just changing the third tree in a combination can make it so that what you're primary objective is will shift. You know, some builds will be a hybrid that wants to actually heal and fight at the same time, whereas this one's kind of more all or nothing. You want to do all your healing first, and then really pick and choose your time to actually get into the fight with your occultism and battle rage. So that's all I really had to say about the Blackguard. One last thing, I didn't take Skewer this time around. You certainly could. I'm a pretty big fan of this spell, as I've mentioned in many other videos. I think it's quite underrated, for group play especially. So it's an option out there. It can help initiate fights and help deal with some other things, you know, people coming after you and all that. But yeah, that's it for the Blackguard. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the video, and I'll see you next time.